Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome again to the Stoner Report. I'm Marius Stoner here at the BCMP Vapor Lounge. It's a rainy day in Vancouver today, so we're all dreary and depressed. No, not really. It's all okay. So we have lots of news again for you. Katrina, unfortunately, has found another thing that she has to absolutely do. And she's no longer my co-host. She really, really wanted to be, and I really wanted her to be too, and she was very excited. But something else came up, and it was more important, and I'll let her explain what happened. But yeah, hi Katrina, I hope you're doing great, and we'll see you around. She'll still be on the Wednesday show and stuff. So I'm back to solo co-hosting for now. And you may notice I'm using many cams, so I'm going to have some images displayed as I read the stories, and I think will hopefully make the show a little more entertaining. All right. In Canada, you'll remember last week's decision to extend home growing for some of the people who basically have had licenses or will have their license extended until the 30th of September. Here's a story about that. Terry Perkins says without recent court decision, he wouldn't be able to afford his medicine. And that was the primary reason why one of the major reasons why the decision was made. A medical marijuana user near Florenceville says he's relieved a ban on being able to grow his own pot at home has been temporarily halted by a federal court decision. Terry Perkins, 63, says he suffers from chronic pain and a back injury and rheumatoid arthritis. Marijuana has helped him cope, but he says he wouldn't be able to afford his medicine under new rules slated to effect on April 1st, which required him to get supplied by a licensed grower. Under this program that they've brought forward, my cost is $20,500 a year, said Perkins, who lives on his Canada pension of $332 a month, plus his wife's paycheck. And I have to buy something from one of these cropper grow-ops that I'm not sure what they're using to grow it with or what the strain is. For the past 6 years, Perkins has grown his own marijuana in his garden with Health Canada's approval. But the new rules would end home production of medical marijuana. And every single medical marijuana law in Canada has been challenged so far. And so it's unlikely that this particular one is going to hold up in the long run. Legalize Canada. A new activist group targets key ridings to elect pro-marijuana candidates. The recent success of the marijuana legalization movement in the United States is due to many ways to the ballot initiative process, a system where individual states can force any issue before the voting public as long as citizens are able to collect enough signatures in support. Since California legalized marijuana in 1996 with Prop 215, a steady stream of states have concurrently chipped away at the monolith of U.S. cannabis prohibition, leading to medical marijuana reforms in 20 states and Washington, D.C., as well as the legalization of recreational use in Washington and Colorado. Most Canadian provinces do not have a citizen-initiated referendum system. The few exceptions that do, like British Columbia, make a win nearly unobtainable, with ridiculously high signature collection requirements and an impossibly short time period. In Canada, a majority dominance of the House of Commons and the Senate, like one held by the Conservatives, gives the governing party leader a virtual dictatorship. The only way to enact real legislative change is to elect candidates who will actually vote to make those changes in the House of Commons. Until now, there have been few Canadian politicians actually willing to offer support for anything other than decriminalization. NDP leader Thomas Mulcair and many of his party are still clinging to this half-assed position. But now, Mulcair and his crew are in serious danger of looking stale and antiquated. The political winds have changed direction and are blowing in the sweet aroma of cannabis law reform. The big legalization wins in Washington and Colorado were officially given a pass by President Obama, and Liberal leader Justin Trudeau and the majority of his party have come out in support of full legalization. Colorado approves retroactive reversal of marijuana convictions. This is an amazing story. Something we've been looking forward to. I never thought it actually would happen. The Colorado Court of Appeals has ruled that residents there convicted of marijuana possession before recreational weed was legalized may be eligible to have those decisions overturned. As of January 1st, 2014, adults from Colorado are legally allowed to buy up to 1 ounce of marijuana under the state constitution's recently passed Amendment 64. But with upwards of 9,000 marijuana possession cases being prosecuted each year before then, a huge chunk of the state's population is now left wondering how the newly enacted law impacts previously decided court rulings. Earlier this month, on March 13th, the 3 judges of the state's appeals panel said that part of an earlier decision in a case against a Colorado woman sentenced in 2011 for marijuana possession should be vacated. In making their decision, the appellate court wrote that there could be post-conviction relief if there has been significant change in the law. And there certainly has. Colorado Supreme Court lets lawyers work with marijuana businesses. Colorado lawyers who provide legal services to state-sanctioned medical and recreational marijuana businesses will not run afoul of attorney ethics regulations under a rule adopted on Monday by the state's highest court. The decision could help marijuana entrepreneurs widen the number of attorneys they can rely upon to navigate the legal gray zone in Colorado for the drug, which remains illegal under federal law. Colorado and Washington state legalized recreational marijuana use in voter initiatives in 2012, and a similar measure is on the ballot this summer in Alaska, while many more states allow medical marijuana. Retail cannabis stores opened in Colorado in January, and Washington is set to follow suit later this year. But the Colorado rules of professional conduct have prohibited attorneys from aiding clients in any type of illegal activity, leaving questions about whether they could legitimately provide services to the pot industry. The decision on Monday by the Colorado Supreme Court follows a request from the State Bar Association, which sought clarity for members who represent clients in the cannabis industry. Lawyers in Colorado may counsel clients regarding the validity, scope, and meaning of the state's marijuana laws and their implementation, according to the rule change signed by Chief Justice Nancy Rice of the Colorado Supreme Court. An odd story out of Washington. Native Americans fight to ban marijuana in a quarter of Washington state. Oh, and I almost forgot to get the image of that one. Sorry. Voters in 2012 elected to abolish the prohibition against pot in both Colorado and Washington states, but the latter is only this month issuing its first legal weed licenses to dispensaries that will grow and process marijuana. If the Yakima Nation has its say, however, then a large chunk of Washington will reject the new state law. The 10,000-member Yakima Nation has already said pot will stay illegal on the around 1.2 million acres of reservation in central Washington, where state law is trumped by local rules. But Reuters reported this week that the tribe is considering a bold move that could test the limits of tribal sovereignty by seeking to keep weed outlawed in another 10.8 million acres of ancestral land. According to Reuters journalist Jonathan Kaminsky, the Yakima want to make sure the cultivation and selling of marijuana remains against the law on a huge stretch of Washington that was ceded to the United States government through an 1855 treaty, but where the tribe members maintain hunting, food gathering, and fishing rights. The Yakima has previously won similar legal battles. Kaminsky wrote, including one in which it successfully fought off efforts to put a landfill on ceded land. This time, however, the tribe wants to make sure marijuana remains outlawed on a chunk of land that now includes part of 10 counties across the state. That's just too ridiculous for me to really comment on. Sorry. I'm speechless. Maryland Senate passes medical marijuana legislation. The Senate passed legislation Thursday that would give Marylanders with serious medical conditions access to marijuana if it is recommended by a specially licensed physician. As amended in the Senate, the bill is significantly different from the version passed by the House. The Senate bill, which passed 45-1, takes a much less restrictive approach to the number of licenses for growers and distributors of marijuana, which the House had restricted to 10. The Senate version has no limit on the number of growers and calls for a minimum of 94 distributors to be spread across the state. The Senate, motivated by concerns of a monopoly with the House approach, separated the growers from the distributors. Supposed medical marijuana measures in Alabama and Utah are anything but. Media outlets reporting otherwise are wrong. The following first appeared in the Normal blog. At a public signing ceremony today, Utah's Republican Governor Gary Herbert will approve House Bill 105, a.k.a. Charlie's Law. The law, and others like it, ostensibly allows children with treatment-resistant pediatric epilepsy access to extracts of the marijuana plant high in cannabinoid cannabidiol, CBD. While some media outlets are reporting that the passage of these measures are akin to approving medical marijuana, such claims are far from accurate. Specifically, Utah's HB 105, which takes effect on July 1st, is largely unworkable. As written, the law only exempts from state prosecution those with intractable epilepsy who possess a cannabis extract that contains more than 50% CBD and no more than 0.3% THC. Patients must receive a written recommendation from a Utah board-certified neurologist and be registered with the State Department of Health before seeking such extracts, which for the time being may only be procured from outside the state. The extracts must be procured in a lab that possesses a state license to manufacture such products. While this language may appear to allow Utah patients to procure CBD products in a neighboring medical cannabis states like Colorado, the likelihood of this scenario is highly doubtful. Colorado's medical marijuana law only allows those who are state residents and who possess a state-issued patient identification card to legally purchase such products. In other words, Utah parents would have to violate Colorado law to obtain high CBD extracts, which are likely to only be available from a medical dispensary, not a retail cannabis market. Colorado medical marijuana dispensaries would also be in violation of not just the letter of the law, but also the spirit of the law by providing a product they know is intended to be transported across state lines. A clear violation of the guidelines put forward in the August 2013 Department of Justice memo, which call for preventing the diversion of marijuana from states where it is legal in some form to other states. Yes, please. Thank you. Thanks, Tom. Legalizing medical marijuana does not increase crime stats. And it is 2:20. I'm not sure if my alarm is going to go off. No, it's not going to go off today. I wonder what happened. So, happy 2:20 to everybody. Perfect time to get past the joints. Next week I'll have a map of the Mountain Time Zone. I forgot to do that this week, and then we can say hi to everybody. Let's have a look at chat as I take this short break. Oh, thank you, Tom. How is everybody doing in chat? You all 23 viewers, nice to see you all. Hope you're liking the new format. Yeah, I like it. We're almost like a real news program now.
Just need a teleprompter.
Teleprompter, yeah, that would be the final touch, I think. Hey, we never turned our house lights on, but I guess we never needed. No. We'll just leave them like this because now that will change everything. So, but yeah, everything seems to be going groovy. There you go. All right, on with the show. Legalizing medical marijuana doesn't increase crime stats. Opponents of medical marijuana envision all kinds of insidious ways that legalizing the drug might lead to crime. Make marijuana more accessible, and more people will use it. If more people use it, they will tumble through the weed gateway to cocaine, or worse. Those people will then engage in crime to fund their hard drug habits or violence in the service of getting the stuff. Furthermore, once word gets out about medical dispensaries, those locations will become hotspots for criminals who now know exactly where to find prey carrying cash and drugs. Same goes for grow houses, which just invite property crime. Pondering all these dark possibilities, it's no wonder anyone suspects mayhem in medical marijuana laws. Actual historic crime data, however, suggests that there's no evidence that legalizing the drug for medicinal purposes leads to an increase in crime. In fact, states that have legalized it appear to have seen some reductions in the rates of homicide and assault. These findings come from a nationwide study published Wednesday in the journal PLOS1, which is notable for the fact that no one seems to have done this crucial analysis before. Researchers at the University of Texas at Dallas have looked at the FBI's Uniform Crime Report data across the country between 1990 and 2006, a span during which 11 states legalized medical marijuana. Throughout this time period, crime was broadly falling throughout the United States, but a closer look at the differences between these states and within the states that legalized the drug before and after the law's passage further shows no noticeable local uptick among the whole suite of crimes: homicide, rape, robbery, assault, burglary, larceny, and auto theft. Thank you. Marijuana's healing powers require the whole plant, not just one oil extract. CBD-only laws are a pretext to extend marijuana prohibition under the guise of protecting the children. A version of this article was originally published on the Pediatric Cannabis Therapy website. Ever since marijuana was banned by the federal government in the 1930s, proponents of prohibition have insisted that cannabis must remain illegal to protect America's children. Protecting the children continues to be the calculated cornerstone of anti-marijuana propaganda, the cynical centerpiece of the war on drugs. How ironic, then, that today thousands of families in the United States are desperately seeking cannabis remedies to protect their children from deadly diseases. The erstwhile assassin of youth has become the savior for kids with catastrophic seizure disorders and other life-threatening conditions. Drawn by the near-miraculous healing power of oil extracted from the marijuana plant, families have been flocking to Colorado and other cannabis-friendly states, where they hope to find a remedy that helps their children, some of whom suffer over 100 seizures a day. Parents are reporting a dramatic reduction in seizures, often 50 to 90%, when their children are given oral extracts rich in cannabidiol, a non-psychoactive cannabis component. These extracts are low in THC, the compound that causes the high marijuana is famous for. For every family that has uprooted and moved to Colorado, many more have chosen to stay home and lobby local officials in an effort to change state law so they might access the essential medicine. Their poignant pleas are having an impact. Politicians from both parties have been rushing to approve bills that would legalize marijuana for therapeutic purposes in such unlikely places as Kentucky, Georgia, Tennessee, Nebraska, South Carolina, Oklahoma, and Utah. Extreme zero-tolerance anti-pot driving laws are unfair and destructive. Lawmakers should consider alternative legislation approaches when it comes to cannabis and driving. Efforts to better identify and prosecute impaired drivers are laudable, but the enactment of unscientific and inadvisable per se legislation for THC, the primary psychoactive compound in marijuana, and its inert metabolites, byproducts, is not a scientific or advisable approach to addressing traffic safety. Nonetheless, 16 states now impose either per se or zero-tolerant per se laws for motorists who operate a vehicle even when trace levels of these constituents in their blood or urine, regardless of whether or not they are behaviorally impaired. Other states require evidence of recent drug use and evidence of behavioral impairment due to said use in order to go forward with a DUI drug charge. Additional states like California are proposing similar per se laws for pot. Such legal per se limits for cannabinoids are arbitrary and problematic. Here's why. Both THC and carboxy, THC-COOH, may be detectable for periods of time extending beyond any reasonable period of impairment, such as days in the case of THC or weeks in the case of carboxy THC. As a result, the U.S. National Highway Traffic Safety Administration affirms it is difficult to establish a relationship between the person's THC blood or plasma concentration and performance-impairing effects. It is inadvisable to try to predict effects based on blood THC concentrations alone, and currently impossible to predict specific effects based on THC-COOH concentrations. The United States Department of Transportation drug expert recognition training materials similarly acknowledge toxicology has some important limitations. One limitation is that, with the exception of alcohol, toxicology cannot produce per se proof of drug impairment. That is, the chemist can't analyze the blood or urine and come up with a number that proves the person was or wasn't impaired. Taxpayers are the real losers in the drug war. Rarely do the left and right agree, but they have backed into each other in deciding long sentences for most drug offenders are inhumane, ineffective, and expensive. Progressives think they're cruel and unusual punishment, way more than needed to fit the crime. And increasingly, conservatives think it's overall overkill for another reason. We can't afford it. It punishes the convict and his family, but also the rest of us. Democratic President Barack Obama's Attorney General, Eric Holder, has instructed U.S. attorneys to avoid charging nonviolent drug defendants for crimes that carry mandatory minimum sentences. About half of federal prisoners are there because of drugs, increasing from 4,700 in 1980 to 98,000 now. The cost of running federal prisons has increased 1,700%, about $7 billion a year. This focused reliance on incarceration is not just financially unsustainable, Holder told the Federal Sentencing Commission, an independent body that sets sentencing policies. It comes with human and moral costs that are impossible to calculate. Republican Texas Governor Rick Perry, at a March 7 panel discussion on criminal justice at the Conservative Political Action Conference, said Texas has shifted to a smart-on-crime corrections system, saving money and human potential by moving drug addicts towards treatment rather than prison. Nebraska industrial hemp bill easily passes the unicameral. Hey, Jeremiah. Industrial hemp could be grown for research in Nebraska under a law easily passing the unicameral. The legislature voted 39-2 for LB 1001, a bill that will allow the University of Nebraska and the State Department of Agriculture to grow hemp. The bill now goes to Governor Dave Heineman. Senator Norm Wallman of Cortland said Nebraska farmers used to grow hemp. Years back, during the war years, World War I especially, I guess, they grew it around Odell, and we actually processed it here in Nebraska, Wallman tells Nebraska Radio Network. We made hemp for things like shipyards, so it's a tremendous tough plant for rope and stuff like that. Wallman says, while industrial hemp might look like the marijuana pothead smoke, it wouldn't get anyone high. And of course we know that, and hemp is can be used for a lot more things besides rope. Henry Ford made his car out of hemp, and anything that we made out of petroleum, we could make out of hemp seed oil. So I'd like to challenge the Lego company to change your Legos to hemp seed oil. Be the first, step up and make your Legos non-toxic for kids and biodegradable. One day you will anyway. And let's see, one more hemp story. Get the image up. Hemp seed imports weighed as non-lethal aid to Ukraine. The U.S. Department of Agriculture is seeking to help Ukraine's battered economy by bolstering imports of its hemp seed. Ukraine hemp, a cousin of marijuana, lacks the active ingredient that gives pot smokers a high and is prized for commercial and industrial applications. Hemp seed can be used in high-protein oils for making paint and plastics. We are now involved in trying to figure out ways in which we might be able to use the industrial hemp seeds that are created in the Ukraine in the U.S. Agriculture Secretary Tom Vilsack said yesterday in an interview. Ukraine, the world's fourth biggest producer of hemp seed, is seeking aid from the International Monetary Fund and other nations as it struggles with a 4-month political crisis capped by Russia's annexation of Crimea. The currency has plunged almost 25% against the dollar this year. Ukraine is seeking as much as $20 billion from the IMF, which may announce a decision as soon as today. That would have been Wednesday. President Barack Obama has urged Russia to de-escalate the crisis over the Ukraine or face more sanctions should it encroach further into the east of the country after its annexation. All right, so that was the Stoner Report for today. I hope you enjoyed it. We had a new intro, as you probably saw. It was Tom, and I did a little bit of fiddling with it as well. Ironically, somebody also sent me their own intro for the Stoner Report right at the same time we were working on this. Mark Lemong, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, so I apologize for that, and I don't have the letter in front of me, but I really appreciate it. So I'm going to find that on my computer. Here it is. And I'm going to end the show with this intro. It doesn't have the same font and everything, so I'm not going to use it or anything. I really like it, though, and I really appreciate it. Thank you. Don't forget to view our other shows. Wednesday, there is From Under the Influence with Marijuana Man and Al the Alchemist. 4 o'clock, don't forget to join Jeremy for his show, Cannabis Culture News Live. Yeah, he's back from Cannabis, so there's going to be all sorts of Cannabis stuff on there, I think on Rico of Sublimator and whatnot. So that should be a lot of fun. And join me again next Friday at 2 o'clock. Oh, wow, this is really hitting me. Don't Don't forget that cannabis is the most advanced plant on the planet, and in so many ways it's obvious that it's going to help us save ourselves and the world. So have a great weekend and take care. Until next week, I'm Marius Stoner, Associate Editor of Cannabis Culture Magazine.